Alex here with a video on the aftermath of YouTuber Ruby Franke's guilty plea, or we could just say the aftermath of the case. Yes, she entered a guilty plea. I didn't even have to look. Well, I did have to look to confirm whether I was right or not, but my guess was that she pled guilty and that she agreed to testify against Jody Hildebrandt. I did confirm that's exactly what was going on. And one thing that does surprise me, though, is that Ruby Franke agreed to prison time. I kind of had this idea that in order to prosecute one of them, they were going to get the other one to testify against them, and there would probably be a pretty good deal there. Ruby Franke to me seemed like a very selfish person from the beginning, having seen her channels, having seen the way that she threw her own kids under the bus. So the fact that she agreed to serve some prison time is actually a surprise to me. And apparently there was also an agreement to serve the time consecutively. So it should be something over a year, and I think it'll definitely impact the public's confidence in the Utah courts and in the government. I was kind of suspecting that she was going to get off light and that it would enrage people because of her YouTube presence. But this outcome is, in my opinion, probably pretty good. Jody Hildebrandt, I didn't think she was going to plead guilty unless Ruby Franke pled guilty and testified against her, which she did. Once that happened, I was like, okay, Jody's going to plead guilty too pretty soon. And she did. I read some of the details in a couple of these articles. One's on CBS News, and it looks like the attorneys for Ruby Franke were aggressively throwing Jody Hildebrandt under multiple buses. And I still don't think that the public would have cared. They would have been not very sympathetic to a mother doing what she did. But yeah, stuff in here about how she was manipulated and tricked and alienated from her own family, all that stuff. I highly doubt that's true. I suspect that Ruby Franke was alienating her own self from her family with some of the nonsense she was doing on her channel. And people were probably asking her family questions. I know I mentioned this before, guys, but two of her sisters have their own separate YouTube channels, and they're both big YouTube channels. It's not like they're like, oh, let's copy, Ruby Franke and make a channel. They may be, I don't even know. I'm not gonna go look. They have a lot of viewers, guys. So both of her sisters being YouTubers with their own channels, and if I remember correctly, they're both doing the same thing, trying to teach people how to parent. Just people are going to see what's going on with Ruby, and they're going to send questions to the other two sisters. So I have a feeling that Jody Hildebrandt had very little to do with the alienation between Ruby Franke and her family. More likely than not, I believe that she just did that on her own. Apparently, this is kind of a little bit interesting, a little bit funny. I guess they were saying that, or Ruby Franke's lawyers were saying that she was going to, reconnect with her family now that she's no longer under the spell of Jody Hildebrandt and all that. And I'm just like, yeah, right. So I kept on taking a look at these articles, and I saw that the sisters were not going to embrace that, which, for all the things that I just mentioned, makes sense because the viewers can smell the BS, and it'll just tear up those other channels. So if these other sisters are only considering, sort of familial relationships, I guess that's one thing. But they're also considering their own channels and their own viewerships. And so there's just no way that there's ever going to be any kind of close connection, because if somebody finds out, they're going to start posting drama stuff on YouTube about it. The only thing that I think would be interesting with this case going forward would be coverage of the divorce, but that's just something that rarely occurs. And Utah, I just highly doubt they would allow coverage of the divorce. So definitely, if this was in Nevada, it would be a good candidate for coverage if it was accessible. But that's kind of, I think, the only real thing left of value is that the public would learn about how these domestic relations cases unfold in a case that there's a lot of interest in. And in a case that, honestly, you can say, this is not something you can say with a lot of families. A lot of families are private when they first start out, but these families aren't. All three of the sisters have YouTube channels. All of them have As far as I know, all of them have their kids on their channels. I know Ruby did. I'm not 100% sure on the others, so if I'm wrong, please let me know in the comments, and I apologize. But this is a rare opportunity for coverage of family court because the exposure's already been done. So it's not like you're subjecting this family to exposure. They've been voluntarily subjecting themselves to exposure for years. So yeah, that's all I have on this, guys. Interesting to me only in respect to the fact that she actually agreed to serve prison time. Everything else to me kind of just unfolded the way I thought it would unfold. But that is a surprise to me, and I think that's very important for the government to agree to, so that they don't, get heaps of criticism dumped on them, which they would very much deserve after all these people were watching the channel and reporting her to the police and nobody did anything. So yeah, you guys have any questions, feel free to post them down in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time.